Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet SkyFF, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. My name's Serge.
And my name is James.
My world does not revolve around £50,000, James, but does yours?
It's only ever going to maybe revolve around £10,000 for you if I happen to win the game. Let's be honest. No, I'm no closer to winning it. That's a certainty. I think 97th overall at the moment. I got 6 players in the City game this evening, so I expect a little bit of a green, but that's very dependent on hitting the right captain, I guess. So it's just sitting there at the moment. It's not really going anywhere. I mean, the same guy's first and second, Darren Slater, isn't he? What a superstar.
Yeah. Where are you, Darren Slater? Please, can you let us know if you're listening to the pod? You can find me at Surgeon Shah, and my sort code is and my account number is because you look like you're odds on. If I was a betting man, I did notice after I think it was Monday that Ben Cameron, one of our patrons,
He went
was
first,
number
yeah.
one. Yeah, tasty. But he is
Fourth.
he's
He's
fourth
fourth
at the
now. But he's
moment.
still very much in the running.
Nine. I mean, 9 points, not a lot, is it?
Listen, there's a lot of people still in the running. Just from this stage, you need to get the jam with your captaincies, consistency. And when you do something different, you need it to hit. And I don't think we're quite at the point yet where it's, oh, I have to do something different. It might feel that way for people who are a lot further behind, who still have ambitions for, I mean, if you're 200th, for example, and your only ambition is to finish first, then you're probably in gamble stage already in terms of swinging away from a template. But if you take that, Darren's obviously first and second on the same points in both of his teams. I presume, I'm just going to put it out there, that he's probably had the same team for both teams all the way
Both.
through. And the intention,
Yeah.
part of the strategy, I would guess, is that when it gets to the
Now he
end,
can diverge.
he can pick two different captains in the
Edge.
last week or the last 2 game weeks or whatever. I would think that's probably literally just last day, as it would stand for Darren at the moment, would be game week 38. I'm going to pick 2 different captains and give myself 2 different chances. That's
It's very
that's
good.
what I'd be
Very well
thinking at the moment.
played.
Absolutely.
Mm.
How was your
I
week?
had a very meh week. I'm on 94 points. I don't know if that's good or not. I didn't check my game week rank. What are you on, James?
I'm on 101 points for the week, which feels meh.
I'm always consistently about 8 to 10% behind you. To be fair, I mean, Vestergaard captain on Saturday was a 6 pointer. It wasn't the worst
Did you do that
situation
as
in the
well?
world. Yeah, I only had I had Vestergaard and Pope, and I didn't want to go Pope, so I went with Vestergaard.
The problem for us with the Vestergaard clean sheet Saturday was the majority of people were on Martinez, weren't they? And
Oh, okay, fine.
he's
Yeah,
done the
that's true.
business again.
Cleaned up with Harry Kane on Sunday. So did everybody else, probably. And so that didn't really move me
Except
further
for Paul,
forward. I went from
most Salah owners who obviously went Salah rather than Kane at Overhaul and are still sitting there are probably counting the amount of points lost on that over the 4 game weeks or so.
I just don't think it was that big a number of people because I went from 1800 to 1600 overall rank off the back of that. And then with Dallas was my only player on Monday night. I slipped back and I'm literally at 1700. So I've made 100 position rise over these days without using any transfers, I might add. But that was it. And yeah, it's just still treading water. And even when I have things like Kane going off with a 46 pointer, treading water and just staying where we are. So it's all well and good, though. I am in a position like top 500 is my target, and I think it's an acceptable and fair target from where I am. And
Where are
I've
you?
got 16 transfers to go. 1790.
Absolutely, you can do that. And how many transfers left?
16.
Oh, you're well in hand, mate. You're well in hand. I mean, I'm down to 10.
Yeah, I'm not making any today. I've got 6 players tonight, including Vestergaard, so maybe count him. But Kevin De Bruyne will be my captain again today, and then onwards and upwards we start looking at how we can maneuver and do.
And did you bring KDB in?
For Foden, when I knew what was the game where last midweek where we knew the team, or when I knew the team that
Wolves
Foden
game.
wasn't playing. Yeah, that was it.
Or was it?
That's
Or
when I
did you
bought
go to
KDB.
West Ham game on the Saturday lunchtime?
No.
You went to the Wolves
It was
game.
after. It was the midweek game last week where we knew the team before before the deadline, and I
Okay.
saw Foden wasn't playing. I was like, done now. I've got money sitting there. Let's go KDB.
How do you feel
Can't
about
leave
that,
Foden in
owning
there.
KDB now?
Fine. I'm going to hold him now. He's not going anywhere for me, and I'm happy to captain him. It's funny because his performance at the weekend wasn't great. He was involved, but nothing seemed to work. But I think with him, the penny can drop at any given moment, and things will click, and suddenly you're like, oh, monster. But yeah, the positions he was picking up and where he was floating around and stuff, it was just a bit all over the place, really. Be on the left, on the right, here, there, everywhere. And Bradley Parker, our Wolves correspondent, tweeted that he was having a mare, and I was like, I feel like that's the situation. He's going to pick the ball up 30 yards out, just belt it one because he's so frustrated and is going to end up in the top corner type situation. That's how I felt about him. He's staying. He's staying. He's not going anywhere. But
the problem is when you've got Diaz probably picking up on average, say 15 points every 2 games, you need him to match that. That's part of the issue.
I've got
at the
Stones
moment.
and Cancelo. I don't have Diaz. I've only got Stones.
No, but what I mean is you need De Bruyne. Stones Diaz is not going to be too much in it. There's obviously a little bit more reliability and starts almost likely with Diaz. But with De Bruyne, if you're going to be, I think if you've got him, I completely get that you're going to go down the route now where your position is in the leaderboard as well to go, I'm captaining De Bruyne regularly. He's going to be a bit of a differential for you, although it is steadily increasing. May do again a little bit tonight, but then from Saturday you're probably going to get a jump off of Manchester City players. My point is, for you to be going down this route, you really need De Bruyne to be outscoring Diaz over the next 2 games. So I presume your thought process at the moment is you'll captain De Bruyne again at the weekend. But then if he starts tonight, does that put the doubt in your mind?
No, not at the moment.
You just go with it.
I think my opinion on City is they'll want to get the league done and dusted as quickly as possible so they can focus on the Champions League. But and I know most of us believe that it is done and dusted, really, isn't it? So
yes.
But officially, I think they'll just want to get it done and dusted as quickly as possible.
I don't think Manchester United have the arse about them to be winning 6, 7, 8 games consecutively. I just can't see it. So I think City will have the odd slip up themselves. It's interesting though, isn't it? What is your plan with City assets come Saturday when essentially this block run from Overhaul ends with that fixture at Fulham on Saturday?
So De Bruyne, Stones, Cancelo will stay, and Gundogan and Raheem Sterling are the ones that are on the chopping block, and that I'm happy to move on.
I got 5. I've got Ederson, Stones, Cancelo, Diaz, Gundogan. That's likely to be 3 by the time we next record. I'm looking to go probably Cancelo, I think, rather than Stones to Lewis Dunk on Sunday for Brighton's fixture at Southampton, then covers the captaincy for Brighton versus Newcastle. And my intention, as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, and I'm very much on this path now, is Ederson to Rui Patricio on Monday night. And then I keep the other 3, I think, Diaz, Stones, Gundogan, I would look at as solid consistency. There's nowhere really in the midfield I can move from Gundogan unless I think Jack Grealish reappears really quickly. And it could be that it really works out as a nice few gains for Villa, but actually the fact that they're playing Friday night doesn't make it an immediate jump off. Then they don't play Tottenham till the Sunday afterwards. I think we can assume now that Villa and Everton's not going to happen next midweek, as time of recording is Wednesday morning. It'd be pretty staggering to get that announcement now. Why wait so long? But it could be quite soon after the international break. It could go into game week 30 or game week 31. I'm talking match weeks here, obviously. 32, that free midweek is really unlikely because either Villa against Man City or Everton against Tottenham is likely to move to that midweek because City or Everton, who play each other in the FA Cup, will have the FA Cup semi-final commitment that weekend. So 30 or 31 is more likely than 32, ironically. So I still think it could be quite soon. And I think for those who've got Villa-Everton assets, you need to bear that in mind. I don't think whatever you've got Villa, be it Martinez, Watkins or whatever, I don't think you're selling at the moment because of the Tottenham fixture as well. But there's obviously a lot of frustration at the moment in Everton assets. Now, they've got Burnley on Saturday. Dominic Calvert-Lewin's obviously really highly owned and has been underperforming. He hasn't returned basically since any of us have bought him. But there's a good fixture at the weekend. And then obviously we don't know the layout for match weeks 30 and 31 yet, but the 2 fixtures afterwards for Everton are Crystal Palace and Brighton, and there's every chance the Villa fixture will go in there as well. So for me as a Calvert-Lewin owner, my intention is to hold at the moment, because it could suddenly spring that it looks like a really strong run for them. And a lot of that will be dependent on obviously how the fixtures lay out for that match week 30 and 31, which that starts on Saturday, April the 3rd. We don't know how that's going to sit at the moment. And I suspect we're all about to go blind. So I don't expect a fixture announcement on the April games until after the match week 29 fixtures. So the midweek after the FPL's blank game week, where there's only the 4 Premier League fixtures, if you will. I think that will be gone and we still won't know the fixtures. I think that's a strong possibility, because you've got the 2-week international break for them to then decide the fixtures.
Figure it out.
They'll have
and they'll know the European layout.
That's
and,
it.
and what the scores are for that.
The FA Cup quarterfinals as well, in terms of, right, so when does Tottenham play Southampton? When does Everton play Aston Villa? And get that all organised together. So I really think we're going to go blind. So in the case of someone like that, Calvert-Lewin, it's easy to go, oh, he's shit, let's get rid of him. Actually, the only way to look ahead with it at the moment is, okay, right, so who are they playing after the break? And Everton have got 2 of the best fixtures, and there might be a 3rd fixture to go in there as well, possibly. So just have a little bit of caution on that. We can, once the Champions League fixtures are done, we can start eliminating certain things for that first weekend back. So, for example, if Liverpool obviously go through tonight, we can eliminate the possibility of Arsenal and Liverpool being on a Monday night on April the 5th, for example. We know then that will definitely be a Saturday or a Sunday. And we can continue that pattern with obviously Manchester City and Chelsea's fixtures once they're known if they go through or not, which at the moment we have to assume that all the English teams will go through. But even in the Europa League cases of Tottenham, Arsenal and Manchester United, they could still play Monday and Thursday on the other side. So there's not a lot we can eliminate in terms of what's likely to happen. I think we can make assumptions on certain games, like Leicester and Manchester City will be a popular pick that first weekend back, but it could be 12:30 Saturday, 5:30 Saturday, 4:30 Sunday. I mean, what does it matter? Same case with Arsenal versus Liverpool, right? So to be honest, anybody predicting that match week of 30 after the international break, it'd just be a guess. Just be a pure guess on the way it'll work out, other than once we know the Champions League teams that go through, we can eliminate them from a Monday night possibility. There obviously won't be a Friday night game that game week. So there's probably not too much to overly concern yourself about that first weekend back. Just looking through fixtures that might cause a headache from that particular game week. Chelsea West Brom could be one if it ended up on a Monday night, say if Chelsea went out of Europe. I think a lot of people were on Chelsea assets at the moment. I think the people who did especially well on Monday night had Azpilicueta, for example, or Jorginho, although Jorginho continues to be a rotation risk that I wouldn't be too comfortable keeping personally. Everton Palace could become an issue for you if you get rid of Everton. Leeds Sheffield United, most of us will have coverage for. That's not a problem. Manchester United Brighton, most of us will have Bruno. Tottenham at Newcastle, most of us have coverage. Southampton Burnley is the other one that could cause some issues, I guess, for people. I guess with Southampton at the moment, you're either on Vestergaard or you're not on anything. Obviously, if you've got Nick Pope coverage, then you're covered there. But I don't feel there's too many that are at the moment. And those that are possibly looking to move that on. So I think Southampton, Burnley, Chelsea, West Brom, Everton, Palace are the 3 fixtures that could cause people some issues in that first weekend back. So just be aware of that.
So as we do, I think a reflection on the mood within the community is the fact that we've only had 5 or 6 questions in on Twitter. We normally get 15 or 20. I didn't know if that's because people had unfollowed you, James, because you'd said something about Piers Morgan or something. I didn't know.
I didn't say nothing about Piers Morgan, mate.
Oh, I will. I was ready to mock him today by taking my headphones off and just walking out of the studio and just being like, I'm done. This is it. But we're not actually in the studio. But had we been in the studio, I would have done that for shits and giggles. But we don't have that many questions in because I think people are in this limbo land of, well, how can we plan longer term? Because Sky, we do want to plan. It's a bit of short-termism, and maybe people are a bit confused about what they are and are not going to do. And also now we're getting down to the stages of single digits in terms of number of transfers left. And so people are much, much more cautious as we're getting into the business end of the season. But we will get to those Twitter questions. Let's look at the captaincy options coming up and what your thoughts and plans are around what you're going to be doing, starting with Friday night. Am I right in thinking you have Ollie Watkins?
You not want to start with tonight?
Oh, okay. Yeah, tonight, KDB.
I mean, we'll all obviously get to see the teams. There's not a stress about it.
Yeah.
But what's your intention if all your assets are in the team? Who are you captaining?
KDB.
Okay. I've been bust on Gundogan since I set the team up on Friday night, but I suspect Danny Ings' injury is possibly going to influence me towards a defensive player, depending on what that lineup is. So I'll likely be Diaz priority. If not, then John Stones, I think. Then probably Gundogan. Can't see Diaz or Stones, neither of them playing. So I'm probably going for one of those two this evening, I think. Friday night, yes, I do have Ollie Watkins. I've had him for a little while. Fella's so fucking unlucky every week. So that's a good fixture Friday night. They obviously then have a big gap till the Tottenham fixture on the 21st, but there's a lot of teams who are obviously only going to play once in between. So there's no kind of hop on, hop off you keep. And they've got Fulham in match week 30. Then there's a really tough run. So I think whenever probably the Fulham fixture lands on that weekend of April the 3rd, that's probably going to be exit Villa from that point for a lot of people, I think, rather than after Newcastle. But yeah, be Watkins for me Friday night. If you've got Martinez, it's obvious, particularly with Newcastle's attacking problems at the moment.
I have no coverage in this game, James. So it's interesting for me on what direction I go in. The good thing is I've got a few transfers left. So I have a number of options up my sleeve that I've thought about depending on once I see the team. If Jack Grealish is in, then Marcus Rashford, Jack Grealish is going to be the move that I make. Straightforward. Right, Rashford's got a bit of an injury and I'm ready to move on from him.
Okay.
If Jack Grealish is not in the team, then I could easily move to Ollie Watkins, like you. It's a straightforward Rashford to Ollie Watkins move. Plan C would be Nick Pope to Emi Martinez. Also a good move. But there's a plan D, which I actually quite like, and you'll probably tell me it's bonkers. But
I like bonkers. Go for it.
It'd be to Dubravka, because it gives me captaincy coverage for that fixture, and it gives me captaincy coverage for Brighton, Newcastle, which I have no coverage for either. So I feel like if I'm getting the two captaincy coverages, that's fine for me, and then I'll come off Dubravka and go wherever I want to go after that. I can't bring myself to buy Joe Linton or any of the others, Lascelles or any of these guys. I just can't see anyone from the outfield players that I could even be tempted with from Newcastle. And giving myself two captaincy coverage is fine.
Have you got any Burnley assets? Well, you'd be selling Pope if you went to Dubravka, wouldn't you? Have you got any West Ham?
No, but I am very keenly looking at getting Jesse Lingard for the Arsenal game.
Have you got any Arsenal? There's a reason why I'm asking these questions. Just yes or no?
No. West Ham Arsenal is the game you're thinking have I got covered?
No. Have you got any Leicester?
Okay. No.
Have you got any Sheffield United? No. Have you got any Fulham?
No.
Right. So, other than the fact that during their run-in, Newcastle play Manchester City and Liverpool and Tottenham, of the remaining fixtures, Dubravka is going to cover you the fixture for all but 3 of them. So I don't think it's a mad choice at all. I really think when you change goalkeeper, like I'm about to do with Rui Patricio, that should really be factored into your thinking. Remember, we're all blind, but we can make certain assumptions and look at fixtures and go, okay, if that's a Friday night, that's going to cause me a problem. If that's a Monday night, that's going to cause me a problem. And I think when moving around goalkeepers, that should be part of your decision process. So for you, on that analysis, looking at it and going, well, Newcastle have 11 fixtures left, I think it is. 8 of them can potentially cause you a problem somewhere down the line, particularly even more so, they're in the shit, right? So actually, for a TV selection perspective, they're possibly going to be quite popular in this running as well. Now, listen, it could be 12 o'clock Sunday, whatever.
Out and all that stuff.
But Newcastle are a headline act because of their Newcastle United, irrespective of what you think about them on a football pitch. So they are more likely to have the odd Friday night game or Monday night game as opposed to others, even more so at the moment where the TV companies don't have to factor in Newcastle's travelling fans having to go to Brighton on a Monday night, for example. It's unlikely, for example, if fans were going, that Brighton and Newcastle would have been 8 o'clock on a Saturday, but it doesn't matter at the moment, right? So I'm not against that, Dubravka. It'd be a differential, right? There's not many people going to be on that route. I don't hate it. They're just shit. You just have to remember that. That's all. But I don't hate it.
No. So that's where I'm at in terms of Friday night in terms of captaincy. Probably will be that move, but I want to wait and see what I get in terms of the teams. Let's talk about Saturday. Manchester City away at Fulham, or are you more tempted with the likes of Calvert-Lewin at home to Burnley, or even a Leeds asset at home to Chelsea?
Can't answer that with confidence. If there's something, if I'm not clear on my thinking about Manchester City after tonight, genuinely I will go with Calvert-Lewin, because I've seen things in Burnley recently that I really, really don't like, and I think it's the sort of opposition that he could do very well against, actually. But if I get something that's clear from the game tonight, be it Diaz is rested, for example, then I'm highly likely to go down that route. I think that's probably what it's dependent on, because the City guys will almost definitely pick Parson-Tier up against Fulham. And as much as we've obviously really praised them recently, they're not the best in front of goal, Fulham, let's be honest. So there's every chance of at least the Parson-Tier, possibly the clean sheet on top. So I think if Diaz or Stones gets a break tonight, and it looks no more than a break, then I'll probably still be going with one of them on Saturday. I think is the most likely. Gundogan, maybe. If he gets left out tonight, I might think, that's a decent punt. Fulham will defend really deep. He'll be in and around the box. But I can't answer that yet. If all three of those play for City tonight, Diaz, Stones, Gundogan, I think I would captain Calvert-Lewin on Saturday.
Wow. Interesting. I will probably leave the armband on Kevin De Bruyne, but I also have. I'm hoping that Raheem Sterling gets his rest tonight, because then I can go. I can go to Raheem Sterling on Saturday. Should he get a rest, I'll feel
to buy him.
like I can make that move. No, I already own him.
Okay, fine.
So to captain him, just to captain him.
Yeah, it's
and then
fine.
I won't be. I mean, I would only move off him after that fixture. In any case,
you already know that Raheem Sterling's going to piss you off, by the way. You know that.
Yeah, it's fine. He's going to be gone on Sunday, so it's all good.
All right, cool.
Sunday, the 14th of March, Mother's Day. I might even let my missus pick my captain.
Yeah, as if. I think if you're sitting there with Jamie Vardy, for example, or Ricardo Pereira, I can definitely see the want to go for one of the Leicester players against Sheffield United on Sunday purely because of the opposition, and that would be fine. Majority of people are, I think, going to go swing back to Bruno. There's no real reason, despite the opponent obviously being difficult in West Ham. I think his popularity will be enough. Down to 96.1% ownership in the top 1,000, Bruno Fernandes. So it does suggest that a few people have come off, but I spoke about the idea that people may be looking at a hop on, hop off, gain a few fixtures of City, for example, and then go back. So I expect that to still increase come Sunday. I'll be Bruno over Kane. I don't think this is the one to gamble on. Kane obviously historically has a great record against Arsenal, but I would look at it and go, realistically, if one of them was to go off, which one's more likely? For me on Sunday, it's still Bruno, I think. So I'll be going Bruno on Sunday. You're in disagreement about it. You're going to go Kane, aren't you?
I'm going to go Kane.
That's fine.
I don't disagree that there's not much in it, but I just think defensively, West Ham I mean, Arsenal are all right defensively as well, but then if David Luiz has a David Luiz sideshow Bob day, you're going to cause them problems. I think you're going to be really up for this game as well. So I think the Manchester United West Ham game is going to be tight. We're going to defend as we have really well all season, whereas against Arsenal, they capitulate. And some of their players do Arsenal type things. Harry Kane could have a field day. And he's buzzing right now as well from his body language and everything that's going on with Bale and Son either side of him. I think Harry Kane's in form or in the mood, let's say. So I'm going to be going Harry Kane, if I'm honest with you, but it also means I'm not having to, do any jiggery poking in terms of transfers. Harry Kane for me.
The other thing,
Monday,
just to, before we do Monday, the other thing just to add on from Sunday is obviously there's a few teams who obviously play on Sunday and are then playing in the blank game week, if you will. So we've obviously got Brighton go to Southampton on the Sunday, which is why my intention is to go back to Lewis Dunk on Sunday rather than when they actually play Newcastle, because I'm gaining the extra. And the same applies if you want to go into obviously West Ham assets, Arsenal or Tottenham assets. So look, Antonio's fit at the moment. We're all kind of speaking about there being difficulty in the midfield area at the moment. What would you say to someone who wanted to buy Antonio on Sunday for, say, Rodri or Gundogan, for example?
yeah, it's fine. If you've got transfers in hand, then I think it's definitely one to look at. I don't know about his tier points. He's not really prolific in terms of getting millions of shots off and that kind of thing. So you are reliant on goals a little bit.
It's his
So,
attacking returns are interesting. If I compare it to what I said about the Brav Cup, it could be that it comes back for me on Sunday where I actually go, yeah, do you know what? I'm going to go Gundogan to Antonio as well, because just looking at West Ham's fixtures further on, obviously I don't need the coverage for the Arsenal game because I've got the Villa and Tottenham assets. Wolves, actually, I wouldn't need the coverage if I buy Patricio as well. But then the games afterwards, Leicester, Newcastle, for myself, currently Chelsea, Burnley, all a little another sustained spell where I wouldn't have coverage for it. So Antonio could well come back into my thinking by Sunday. I wouldn't rule out me buying him. And I think he's the one I'd go to rather than, I know Soufal's 6.1 and Dawson's 5.8. I just don't like with the West Ham guys, they're not going to pick up the passing tiers defensively. So you really are relying with Soufal on tackle tiers or assists, or with Dawson, and he's been great scoring from set pieces, but you are literally relying on that. Even in some of those fixtures that West Ham have on the other side of the international break, you're not going to be picking up passing tiers. But I know obviously you like Lingard, but you can't go to Lingard this week because he won't play. He's ineligible,
this week, that's
obviously.
the challenge, isn't it? So yeah, he'd be one for Arsenal and onwards. So yeah, Monday night, Wolves Liverpool. You talked about getting Rui Patricio, and are you just going to stick the armband on him, or are you looking at getting a Liverpool asset as well?
No, I'm not going Liverpool. I'm going to go with. To be honest, I'm so pleased that I said it out loud a couple of weeks ago that looking ahead, I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to get Patricio then. Because I expected kind of you fucking nuts, James. I'm sure a few people did think that. But a few weeks on, it doesn't look quite as mental. Wolves have tightened up a little bit over the last few weeks. And again, as I said at the time, the 5 fixtures afterwards for Wolves, I've got no coverage for, and they're dirty. And they're good fixtures on paper for Wolves in terms of clean sheet prospects. I also have no interest in their other players, similarly to yourselves defensively. You know, your Cody's, etc. They're not going to pick up the passing tiers. Cody's too expensive in this, despite the fact he's going forward set pieces. The other defensive guys are either also too expensive, in my opinion, or a rotation risk. Neto, obviously, 7.3 is the other one that's really interesting. From my experience of owning him for a while, he actually did okay for me over that kind of December, January period. But the problem is with them, you don't actually feel like they're really going to score goals. But because of the fixtures that they've got coming up after the international break, I can definitely understand, plus adding in people's midfield issues, why Pedro Neto would appeal to people. But I think I'd rather buy Antonio Sunday than Neto Monday, for example, and take the risk that can Antonio stay fit, which that's the thing that really puts me off Antonio. Can the bastard stay fit till game week 38? Because once he goes in, that's the only reason he's coming out is if he gets injured.
Yep.
And I think we're kind of getting to that point with a lot of people now. And I think with Neto, you're buying him. And if you buy him, he's going to sit there till probably match week 35 or 36. And then you might have a decision to make. And if you've got the luxury, he goes. And if you haven't got the luxury, he's going to end up staying and he might still piss you off. And the same's possibly going to be true for myself with Rui Patricio. But I feel for me, buying Patricio on Monday, he's going to cover me for future problems. And I had this strategy to go without Liverpool. And so far, that's been working. We know that at any point, they can turn the switch and they'll start playing really well again. But I don't, in the forthcoming games, straight after the international break, I don't see in those fixtures where I'd be desperate to captain a Liverpool player. So it's maybe one for me when they play Newcastle in match week 33, then yeah, I'll steam back into something. But at the moment. No, I'm gonna go without Liverpool, which is a risk because Salah's blanked all these weeks, but he's about 66% owned in the top 1,000. Those owners are not going to get rid of him with the single game day to come. And obviously, if he goes off on Monday night, he goes off on Monday night, and it almost makes it still worthwhile having it. But I'm going to go Patricia.
I can't make a decision on this one yet until I see the team. I have no coverage from either side. Say Salah last week, Mane and Firmino had a rest. What's to say Salah doesn't get a rest in the Wolves game, depending on what happens with the Champions League? I would love it if Salah doesn't play, because then I can just move from Sterling to Mane, for example, if Mane is playing, captain him, and that would be a nice little punt and differential. Give me a decent rise up the ranks. But the thing with Monday night at the moment is I need to see the team before I make a decision. My priority would be getting one of Salah or Mane in, and then they'll stick in for a little while.
What would you advise to people, the 66% or so in the top 1,000 that do own him, and it get to Monday night and he is on the bench? What would you say?
I'd remind them what happened at Crystal Palace.
Exactly. That's very true. I would say generally just, look, he'll get on the pitch almost definitely. Just swing with it and keep your fingers crossed, because you'll have to remember that a lot of other people will be in the same position, and any other player that does go off in his place is going to be quite lowly owned, be it a Neto, a Patricio. If people, to be honest, you'd probably be in that position thinking, people are going to gamble and go Salah to Mane. I mean, we wouldn't advise that, I don't think, at the moment. Diogo Jota is the interesting one, maybe, if he's back in the team and he's back fit, because he also covers he's a midfielder, isn't he? I'm sure he is.
Yeah,
check that for me. So I think he's 8.3, I want to say.
I'm not convinced with going to Jota. I feel like it's a problem you're storing up for yourselves for later on. Diogo Jota is a forward, James.
He is a forward, yeah.
And 9.1. 9.1.
Why do I feel like he was 8.3 last season?
I don't know. Because he's, on the Sky Fantasy Football put the grey shadows around people when they haven't got photographs of him. Diogo Jota is still on the Sky website.
He's still got a Wolves shirt.
Ridiculous. There you go. That's a rundown of our captaincies for the next few days and what our thoughts are around those. The few questions we've had on Twitter, James, you up for getting into some of them?
I am, but can I give you a trivia question first?
Yeah, go for it.
Who is the highest scoring player in Sky since Overhaul?
Since Overhaul?
Yep.
Wow. Harry Kane?
Nope. It's goalkeeper.
A goalkeeper. Who's been keeping Emi Martinez?
Nope.
Clean sheets. Who's been keeping ridiculous clean sheets? Not Lloris.
I'll tell you the answer because you won't get there, mate. It's Sam Johnson. Owned by 0% in the top 1,000. And that's because of the 22-point haul against Brighton, mainly, isn't it? Although it's worth saying the 5-pointer against Manchester United, 9-pointer against Burnley, 12-pointer against Newcastle. He's 6.5 million. So he's more expensive than Martinez, so we're not recommending him. However, do you know, Suj, part 2 of the question, who the highest scoring outfield player is over this period? And I'll give you a clue. It's also someone who's owned by 0% of the top 1,000.
Highest scoring outfield player since Overhaul.
Yeah.
Gareth Bale.
Nope. He ain't 0% owned.
It's not Gareth Bale.
You need to think more obscure, like think away from the bigger clubs.
If I'm thinking about a Fulham player or something like that, Lookman or something like that. No. Is it Lookman?
Nah.
Oh, no. Fulham player. Not Josh Madger.
No. The other side of the pitch, mate.
Defensive.
Yes.
So Adebayo. Aina. Adebayo.
He still ain't got it.
It's not our friend
You've forgotten his first name, haven't you?
What is his Anderson?
It's Joachim Anderson.
Just thinking of it.
Yeah, you're meant to say. You meant to say.
Joachim,
You meant to say. Are you Joachim James? Is what you meant to say. Yes, Joachim Anderson over that period is the highest scoring player. Now, it's worth saying, obviously, Fulham had 2 fixtures in Premier League match week 24 as well. But doing a little hunt back on him, he's 6.3 million. And I think the reason we spoke about Adebayo a little bit at the time was he's 5.2 million. And to be honest, if you're going to go and get one of the two, which, if you've got an injury problem, I don't hate, right? Getting me in, okay, it's Man City, it's not ideal, but they're very good defensively. It might give you the coverage for the Leeds game as well. Just looking back at Anderson's numbers. So Anderson hasn't scored less than 4 points since they lost 2-1 to Manchester United on the 20th of January. His returns at Anderson, 6.3 million. 7, 4, 4, 12, 7, 5, 10, 10, 5, 10. Highest scoring outfield player since Overhaul, owned by no
4
one.
double-digit returns in there, a couple of 7s. That's very, very good.
Anderson, Adebayo is not far behind. So Anderson's had 47 points since Overhaul. Adebayo has had 40. So he's up there. I mean, highest scoring players, a lot of them since Overhaul have been goalkeepers. So you've got Johnson in there, Areola, Jordan Pickford, Emi Martinez. There's quite a few defensive players. Anderson, Azpilicueta has been popular. Ruben Diaz would expect to be in there. Andreas Christensen be another lowly owned player who's obviously kind of taken advantage of Thiago Silva's injury for Chelsea. He's only 7.6 million, but I think Silva could take his place at any time. Ola Reina is in there, 41 points, but he's 6.8. You'd go with the security of the centre halves. Adebayo, as I said. Luke Shaw is in there, 38 points, I believe, since Overhaul. Cole Bartley of West Brom, 6.7 million. Can you see why no one's making any ground? The differentials are doing well, and the differentials that, generally speaking, didn't really interest us. Yeah, it's part of the point. Even Richarlison, we spoke about Richarlison a bit. He's $1 million more expensive than Calvert-Lewin. It's like, what is the justification now as a forward to go with Richarlison over Calvert-Lewin? And I think even now, off the back of what Richarlison's been doing, if I had to buy one of them at the weekend, I'd still buy Calvert-Lewin, I think, at £1 million cheaper, because it's what you can do with the other million. It's interesting that on this list of players taken from FF Stuff's data, that there aren't a huge number of Manchester City players in there. Like Gundogan's there, Diaz is there. There's not too many of them, ironically. And they haven't gone big. And that's because one of the reasons for that is...
they've obviously conceded goals in all the last 3 games. They've conceded against West Ham, conceded against Wolves, conceded against United.
And also the goals scored since Overhaul have been quite well shared amongst people, bar the Gundogan game against Tottenham, basically, where he kind of cleaned up a bit. There's been a real sharing of the attacking returns. One player who is on there, which is quite interesting, is Aubameyang. I think I'm going to say it again. I think he's really interesting for the running. He's another one who could potentially cover a lot of Arsenal's problems. And honestly, if I walked into a Watkins or Calvert-Lewin injury on Saturday or Friday, respectively, I could well buy Aubameyang on this Sunday, actually.
Interesting. Should we look at some of these Twitter questions that we have?
Yes, sir.
From people. Sam Baxi says, if you started the season with 50 transfers, do you think that you would win the game? If not, how many would you need to win?
I presume everybody else would have 50, so it wouldn't make much difference. They'd just make more better transfers than me, I guess.
Yeah, I think the more transfers you have, the better, the more advantage you have if you can really get into the nitty-gritty of planning. Because right now we're planning for 40 transfers. If you had 25% more, you can try and figure out 25% more sneaky moves that you could make that other people might not make, and so on and so on. So there comes a point where there's so many transfers that you're either going to go all in and really get into the detail of the transfers, or just call it a day and not bother even touching it.
What I would say is I've got 10 transfers left. If I'd have had 50 at the start, I think I'd probably have 20 transfers left. I could foresee that, honestly.
Wow. Okay.
I think so much this year has been enforced by everybody. Every Sky Fantasy manager has had issues this year with an injury or suspension, but primarily injuries. A lot of transfers that we've made have all been enforced because of injuries. And so I think the count of transfers is lower than what's representative of what the idea was. Because I think a lot of Sky managers, I don't know what the average is now in terms of top 100. It's probably about 11 or 12 or so. It could even be down to where I am at 10 now, possibly. But I think ideally, most Sky managers would have wanted to be a little bit more ahead of that and have sort of maybe 14 or 15 left now. But it's not been possible because of things that have happened through the season. When you get an injury and someone's out for a month, you can't sit and wait on it for 2 weeks. You just make a decision and get on with it, right? And that's happened. Everybody's had some unluck as a Sky manager this year. So that's why I think it's a bit lower than what we would have expected. Plus, obviously, we have had, let's call them the double game weeks, have obviously been earlier this year in terms of advantages than when we'd normally have them in, say, match week 34 or match week 37. So that's another reason why transfer count is lower now than what it was at, say, this time last season. I don't know, so I don't want to be quoted on it particularly, but I'm pretty sure this time last year when obviously COVID happened, I was still on about, I don't know, 15, 16 left, I think. Pretty sure. And we're kind of at that point now, wouldn't we? I mean, it was before match week 29 last year, the football was called off. I feel like I might go back and check that, actually. I'm pretty sure I had more this time last year than what I've got now. Really sure of that.
We have a question from FPL Offspinner. Simple question, James. With only 15 transfers left, who is the best goalkeeper as a rest of the season keeper, please?
Emi Martinez. I'm not gonna bullshit anybody.
Value for money, I think so.
If I had Martinez, I would not probably be looking to go and get Patricio on Monday night. I'd be looking at alternatives. I don't have Emi Martinez. I think those are on Martinez. But why would you move? The only debate to say is a little bit like what I said. After they play Fulham, they've then got Liverpool, Man City, and it looks a bit stickier. They've still got Manchester United in the run-in. They've got to play Tottenham again towards the end. They finish with Chelsea final day. They do have a very difficult run from match week 31 onwards. So it is probably a case to move off from there. But, I mean, I couldn't recommend Martinez to Patricio on Monday. And then you're going to miss Martinez against Tottenham. And then Martinez against Fulham could happen before Patricio plays West Ham. I think if you fall into that line where, say, Martinez plays Fulham on April the 3rd and Patricio plays West Ham on April the 4th or 5th, then I can see that as a move. In terms of to the end, I really don't mind Wolves. The other name I throw in there is Bernd Leno. Could be a really interesting one as well. I think they're all right defensively, Arsenal, and they're another one with a really good run till the end of the season. And at least with him, unlike potential other Arsenal assets, you probably don't have to worry about the rotation aspect of the Europa League. Leno will just play. But I'd probably say Patricio, actually. I think it could be interesting. He's owned by no one in the top 1,000 as well. I'm really interested to see what his ownership's going to land on come Tuesday. I expect it won't jump a lot. 1-2%, I think, maximum.
I think the other challenge with that question is that we don't know the layout. The fixtures come the rest of the season, so there could be a particular team like Dubravka that I'm talking about that could cover off 4 or 5 different game days that might become interesting as well.
But then that's why the Patricio is the decision for me for exactly that reason.
Football Adam says, I've been playing since January. It seems that having the upper hand is all about holding transfers, but is there a point that it becomes a disadvantage? I.e., if somebody holds 3 or 4 transfers all the way to the final week, is it worth it? And how much value should a transfer be worth? It's not about holding them. It's about using them at the right time.
Yes. Yeah, no,
that's... You don't want to spank them early.
That's absolutely spot on. Listen, I'd rather be...
Finding the gains.
I'd rather be where Darren Slater is and only have like 6 transfers left or something, because the 4 transfers that I would perhaps have in hand, which I assume I don't have, wouldn't be enough to make up the ground. In terms of the value of what you put on a transfer, I think that's very dependent on what kind of time frame you put on it. So, for example, someone like me who was looking at, say, Rudiger to Dunk, then Kane, it's really easy to look at that and go, what do I want from Lewis Dunk over this period in between? I want, say, an additional 15 to 20 points or something like that. But then it's more difficult to look at then the value of, what points have I made out of going Kane instead of Dunk? Well, I mean, obviously Kane's just smashed it this weekend, so I've already made loads on it, but that doesn't feel a fair comparison to make that as a transfer. I'd obviously held the money back from Lewis Dunk to Harry Kane. So if I just then looked at it and go, right, well, Harry Kane's probably going to stay for me till the end of the season now. Do I judge Kane over Dunk from when Tottenham played Burnley all the way to the end of the season? That doesn't feel right. So I think it's individual. It's more a case, it's easier to do that when you want to do the hop-on, hop-offs. What do you want? If you're going from Bruno to De Bruyne and back to Bruno, what do you want from De Bruyne out of that period in the middle that's also going to cost you 2 transfers because you've got to go on and off? And I would say you'd probably want, if it's over, say, a 10-day space, you probably want De Bruyne to get sort of 20, 25 points extra over that period on the value of 2 transfers. Most people generally will answer that question and say the value you'd want out of a transfer is roughly about 10 points, is what I think most of the experienced players would play. But it really depends on over what timescale you're assessing that over.
Talking of experienced players, Benny Blanco says, what about holding off on making transfers until the fixtures are announced unless necessary? Is that the smart thing to do right now?
It might be. And
it's
for
a big assumption, right? It depends coverage. I've got 2 days with no captaincy.
For a lot of people, that will be the right answer. But there are certain cases, like for me, in terms of coverage for Wolves, Liverpool, perhaps needing the coverage for Brighton, Newcastle, for example, where I feel it opens up enough where it's the right thing to do to make a transfer. Looking further ahead and going, okay, at some point over the 5 game weeks on the other side of the international break, I'm going to have a problem here. Or just even in the case that, do you know what, they've got a really nice fixture run. So even if I don't need the captaincy coverage, I've still got a good run out of these players. And I think that should be considered in terms of part of thinking. Honestly, we'll be guessing match week 30 and beyond what it's going to look like. But you can still be conscious and understand things like what I've said about Villa and Everton and the problem that might happen. Southampton's another one where obviously they could have the FA Cup semi-final, the match at the weekend of match week 32, if they beat Bournemouth in the FA Cup quarterfinals, which, to be honest, if Danny Ings isn't back, they could well capably piss it up the wall and get beat, actually. But let's assume that they do win. So then you assume, right, their game with Crystal Palace is postponed. That goes into the midweek afterwards, surely, which is blank and free. Well, it probably doesn't, because the priority is probably for Southampton to play Tottenham. So where does the Crystal Palace fixture go? Well, I don't have the answers, but similarly to Villa and Everton, it could land in that midweek of match week 30. And then suddenly you might be looking at a position where Southampton have 3-for-1s over people, and the 3 fixtures are Burnley, Crystal Palace and West Brom. And that's why, for me, as I said last week, I ain't getting rid of Vestergaard. There's a good chance I'm going to need him there for some coverage. So you can factor that into your thinking with Villa, Everton, Southampton assets particularly, to know that I'm not saying you shouldn't sell, but you need to be consciously aware of the problem that could arise if you do so.
And last but not least, we'll give the last question. Oh, I lost the name. To Sam, who is asking about Chelsea defensive assets after the international break. Are we in a situation where we need to... it's not for me, because they're rotating like crazy at the back there, and I don't know the fixtures. But if the fixtures seem like there's a number of decent opportunities to make advantages on Chelsea defensively, I'd be up for that. But
Chelsea's a real case where, I don't know, let's say hypothetically that their game against West Brom landed on Monday the 5th, or to be honest, even Sunday the 4th, if they're still in the Champions League. Let's say they went out the Champions League and a Chelsea-West Brom lands on a Monday. Right, we're definitely going to want some coverage. Beyond that, they've got Crystal Palace, Brighton, West Ham, Fulham. They've got a good run of fixtures anyway, where they themselves can go and wrap up a top 4 finish before they've got a difficult final 4 fixtures, in fairness. The right call would probably be Azpilicueta. What I would say on that is, obviously, Rudiger had a rest the other night. Mason Mount's a really interesting one. And I think Mount was left out the other night because Tuchel wanted to have a look at a team without him, because Mount's suspended in the Champions League second leg against Atletico. And Mount's playing really high at the moment. He's going to continue to play high. So he's a good differential punt for the final few weeks. I do think Rudiger will come back in. I think, generally speaking, it is one of Christensen or Thiago Silva. And I think you have to assume at some point Thiago Silva is going to come back in the team. Azpilicueta is the one who looks locked. What I would say is, I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play at Leeds this weekend. Because Leeds come at you fast. And it could be that Chelsea decide to go with a more powerful back three of something like Zuma, Christensen, Rudiger, get Azpilicueta a little rest before they play the second leg with Atletico. But I think it's very clear that Azpilicueta is definitely first choice in his thinking at the moment, and is probably the solid and safe play for after the international break. So if he doesn't play against Leeds, don't shit yourself, is what I would say about it. If that's your intention, I would probably still go down that route. It's probably looking at it because of the odd attacking threat and the fact that he likes to get up that right touchline from right-sided centre-half as well. He probably is a slightly better choice than Rudiger. But I still think Rudiger, despite not playing the other night, is a good alternative.
And that's the Twitter questions, James, for another week of Sky Fantasy Football.
Cheers. Good luck this week, everyone.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We'll be back at you tomorrow. James is going to be recording Clash of the Correspondents with our Arsenal correspondent, Adam and Ricky from Spurs, before the North London derby, before live streaming on Friday. So wherever you're listening to the podcast, or if you're on YouTube, you know what to do. Ring the bell, hit the subscribe button.
Ring my bell.
Send us money, wherever is it? Yeah, there you go. But most importantly at the moment, wherever you are, stay safe. Thank you for tuning in, listening, supporting us in everything we do. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Good luck this game week. Cue music, please, man child.